The green stain. No one could be sure. I mean, whoever bothers to look at people's feet? But there were those who suspected that she walked or ran or even, until recently, hovered a few millimeters above other people, that ground level for her meant something different. Anyone looking at her for the first time, or rather, anyone looking at her in what was now a slightly distant past, wouldn't have been surprised if she had suddenly begun to levitate or even fly out of an open window. Of course, on consideration, that person would find this totally impossible and would refuse to accept such a thing without screaming in horror or remaining totally dumbstruck. He would simply stare up at the ceiling or run to the window expecting to see her walking around the square, for there was a square outside, and then come back. Levitation and flight simply don't exist, not even in dreams, or indeed outside of dreams, because she had turned 50, and never in all that time had she abandoned gravity or felt wings growing on her skinny shoulder blades. However, people did feel that she was terribly, terribly light, as she herself sometimes did, especially when she was in love, or felt loved and happy, before. Then one day she suddenly stopped, with no transition, no time to get used to the change, as if an invisible switch on a wall had been turned off, and then she stopped and immediately descended a few millimeters, 1 millimeter, and occupied a lower position, only very slightly lower, of course, but nevertheless lower. This wasn't, perhaps, important, and the problem was rather that she had suddenly become rooted in the ground, like a plant, like a person, dependent. Her body was standing next to a chest of drawers, hesitant, pensive. An idea came to her and wouldn't leave, as if waiting for permission, and she didn't know if she could give that permission. She was filled with a sudden sense of ill-ease, caused perhaps by ways of thinking that were becoming outmoded and would have to be replaced by others. But would they? Normally, there's an interregnum between one time and another. That was normal. But no, there was no such thing. And there she was, a different woman in a different body, fixed to the same ground as everyone else, and staring at a chest of drawers in her bedroom, which she had never had time to look at before, and which, all of a sudden, seemed to her terribly important. Another idea occurred to her, or worse, a threat, and she translated it into words that were telling her that flight had ended a long time ago, and she hadn't noticed. A long time ago. She, however, had refused to come down to earth, and the fall had been very sudden. A millimeter can be a lot. She looked at her slightly swollen, aching feet. She looked at them with horror and indignation. They had been so light, so swift. And she saw, too, actually saw the heart that had just come into existence, a heart to which she had so often referred, but without really believing in its physical existence, but purely as a way of explaining falling in or out of love, nothing more. She was old or sick, or both those things, unprepared. She was also at the outer limit of her beauty, although she had always avoided thinking about such a possibility. She had been a lady with a thin face, honey-coloured hair. She refused to know what lay beneath that skilfully achieved colour now, and an agile body. And leaning against that chest of drawers, she felt old and sick. She felt above all very tired. She knew nothing about lowly, humble things, sometimes distressing, sometimes soothing. She had spent far too long up above, and always moving at such speed that they had seemed to them as misshapen as one of those ancient Piri-Reis maps of the known world. Or she may not have seen them at all, and now she was in pain, and she was obliged to recall that the doctor had told her that she must take care of her heart, that she must walk slowly and not climb stairs. Fancy saying that to someone who used to fly up them. Leaning on the chest of drawers, she felt her age for the very first time, felt much, much older. Just how old did she feel? And for the first time she was aware of her solitary condition. The horizon wasn't that far away, and the ground was there, gripping her feet hard. Would she have time to grow used to her new state? Would it be worth getting used to? She tried to scream, or perhaps utter a sigh. She silently half opened her mouth, and she fell, or slipped. Her thin, beringed hand, she had always liked rings, grabbed hold of the edge of the chest of drawers, but so lightly that she immediately let go. She sat down, hunched on the floor, a mere green stain. The last dress she wore as a living woman was green. Someone else would choose her next one, a garment that would not concern her at all.